Terence Crawford is afraid to fight Errol Spence Jr. at 154 pounds in the rematch. But why? What's good, everybody? It's your boy, Cardinal Red Sports. Let's talk about it. Alright, y'all. So, the rematch between Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Bud Crawford is kind of in limbo at the moment, you know, depending on who you ask. Now, everything that has been coming out over the past few days has not been official, even though it did come from a credible source, depending on who you ask, a friend of Terence Bud Crawford, stablemate of Terence Bud Crawford, and he said that Crawford wants to fight at 147, not 154. I want to break that down and give my info for anybody listening.
So the bottom line in a nutshell is this: Terence Crawford versus Errol Spence Jr. at 154 pounds, period. Not at 147 pounds. Because if anybody is expecting Errol Spence Jr. to make the weight at 147 pounds, you know that it's capped.
Alright, y'all. So Terence Crawford, man, is he afraid to fight Errol Spence Jr. at 154 pounds, and why is he afraid to fight Errol Spence Jr. at 154 pounds? Me, personally, I think that there is some fear there. There's fear of losing. There's fear of Errol Spence exposing Bud. You know, there's fear of him not getting the paydays that he feels like he deserves by beating Errol Spence Jr. and lasting this long in his career.
First of all, it's the mindset, and then it's keeping your body prepared. So it's hand in hand, the body, mind, and soul and spirit.
Now, you know, the biggest fear, I think, is the paydays, you know, because we've seen him go after other fighters ever since that fight ended. You know, we've seen him call out Canelo, we've seen him call out Charlo, we've seen him call out Gervonta Davis, you know, of all people.
But then the OG don't want to listen to the young boy. When he trying to tell the young boy what to do, but he don't look the part.
But the one person we haven't seen him call out is Jermell Boots Ennis. And you would have to wonder why he's not going after Boots. You know, Boots doesn't come with a $20 million payday, but Boots would come with a lot of bragging rights.
He just win one big fight. If you see his record, he just beat one good fighter like Errol Spence.
So I think that fight would actually sell pretty well. It might not do as good as the, you know, Ryan Garcia, Gervonta Davis fight. It might not do as good as some of the Canelo fights, but it's definitely going to sell pretty well because it's two credible welterweights.
Terence Crawford, as a fan, I want to see him fight Boots.
Terence Bud Crawford already has a name for himself. Jermell Boots Ennis is building up his name and does have a great following up in Philadelphia. You know, it's not a small city by any stretch of the imagination. So you can't sit here and say that he doesn't have a following or that people wouldn't buy the fight if they actually made it. I think the problem with that is Terence Crawford only wants really high paydays, and the only names that come along with a really high payday is a Canelo Alvarez fight, a Jermell Charlo fight. You know, the one fight I think he can make at 147 pounds that would make him a lot of money, nobody's even talking about it, and that's a fight with Josh Taylor.
Maybe a Josh Taylor fight is more lucrative than a Spence fight, considering that if the fight was in the UK, we would absolutely put 70,000 people into a big outdoor stadium this spring.
Now, I know everybody's going to say, well, Josh Taylor got beat, and Josh Taylor's name's not as big as a guy like Boots Ennis. Actually, over in the UK, Josh Taylor's probably a bigger star, and Bob Arum was even trying to push that fight, talking about he can get 70,000 people in an outdoor stadium if Terence Crawford was to fight over there. So I'm not going to say that the fight between him and Josh Taylor wouldn't make money. It definitely would. It wouldn't sell as well as some of the American names, but overseas would do extremely well. Now, why is he trying to force Errol Spence into a 147 fight? Well, we already saw that Errol Spence has real difficulties making 147 pounds. Would most likely be, off a little bit again. I don't think he has to be off. I think if he properly loses the weight and he properly trains himself and he has an idea when the fight's going to take place, it's not a surprise to him, then everything can line up for him to win that fight at 147 and regain his titles. Is it the best fight that he can make, or is that the weight that he wants to be at? No, but sometimes you got to do things that are difficult to get to the places that you want to be.
When you punch, go up, ready to go position. Up, ready to go position. Now put it, hit. You want to come up, back and go position. Up, back and go. There you go. Now do it twice. Come on, baby. Come on.
And, I truly feel like he can do it if he wants to, but if it's not what he wants and it's not what he's pursuing, then I think you're going to see a long, drawn-out process of him trying to get Terence Crawford into the ring at 154 pounds.
If you're negative, you got to get away from it. And there are people that come negative because that's just what they've been raised with. They're skilled, and it hasn't worked out because of that. It's just like you just lead with negative first. If I have an idea, the first thing you want to talk about is the problems with it, then we got an issue.
Now, why would he be scared of Errol Spence at 154 and not 147? It's only 7 pounds. Well, if Errol Spence is walking around at around 170 pounds or 165 pounds or 180 pounds, 7 pounds is less pounds that he has to lose to make weight. So anywhere where he can get a little cushion as far as losing weight is obviously going to help him. And I think that Errol Spence has already campaigned there before. I think Errol Spence has been training around that weight. I think Errol Spence had his mind made up before the Terence Crawford fight that he was leaving 147 and it was going to campaign there. So I think that's one of the reasons why he had ballooned up so high. He was getting his body prepared for 154 pounds, and he was preparing to hold that type of weight to where it's not going to affect his body once he does start campaigning at 154. It's called acclimating yourself to the weight.
No more handouts. No more handouts.
I think that Terence Crawford just happened to know some inside information, and Errol Spence actually put some information out there he shouldn't have about not making weight, but he had already been doing that for 2 years, so it's almost like damned if you do, damned if you don't. He needed the Terence Crawford fight. Now, will Terence Crawford be a man of his word and honor the rematch where he said he was going to take it at 154 pounds, or will he force Errol Spence to the 147 fight that he most likely can't win in most people's mind? I think that Terence Crawford isn't going to be a man of his word, and any way that he can stall this fight, whether it's saying, hey, I won't take it unless it's at 147, I think he's going to stall it, especially with what's going on with his trainer, Bomac. I think until he gets some definitive answers about Bomac, we're not going to see him even acknowledge the Errol Spence fight. He's not even really going to bring it up until he finds out what's going on with Bomac, if you ask me. So until October the 9th, and that was the court date, was supposed to be the arraignment of Bomac, I don't think we're going to hear anything definitive about the Errol Spence rematch. And I do anticipate him trying to drag it out into 2024. Now, I think that there were some things in the contract that stated it had to happen this year, but we can obviously see that Terence Crawford's not a man of his word and really doesn't care about contracts at all. So I anticipate things to get drug out a little bit further.
He has made more appearances in the ring than any other boxer in history. Always known as the sparring partner's sparring partner. What is it that all these great boxers have in common? They all kick my...
And I think that Bud is slightly afraid of losing his status at this point. It took him a long time to gain some type of status and recognition by fans and others, even though the big wigs, ESPNs of the world, were already ranking him the #1 fighter in the world. But he feels like he needs that recognition by the fans. He's getting a little bit of it. But if he was to take a 154 loss to Errol Spence, it's lights out for the rest of his career.
Nothing's bigger than the game. The game is a platform for everybody. The addiction of the people. They were like fighters today. The whole objective, how do I outsmart this guy? When you're young and you're a kid, you win because you're stronger. But when you're at the top of the game, you only win because you're smarter. We have to realize that things can happen.
Y'all let me know what y'all think about all that down in the comment section below. Hit that like button for me. Share. Subscribe. Holler at me on all social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. But you're more than likely to get a response on the tube, so holler at me over there. If you want to collabo, feature a product or your channel on my channel, feel free to hit my Gmail, because it is a flock of cards at gmail.com. And we are mad.
It's your boy Louis Keys, spitting game. The hoes get dames, I close and let flames out fofos. And they swallowing the ski. They be loving the meat, loving the beat. Niggas with beef, ducking the heat. I'm running the streets, spitting hot flows off top. Sicker than cough drops. When I start, y'all stop. Lick shots, hoes drop. I always been real, hitting like a bitch's brick, busting through your windshield. You're talking crazy, you shouldn't act so silly. I leave your head cracked like at Bell in Philly. But it's no brotherly love, just mothers with hugs. Cause her son's under the rug with one in his mug. Look at Lou Dash down with red and blue flags. Better move fast, leave you looking like you chew glass. If we do clash, when I'm out for my pay, it'll get ugly, nigga, so let's get out of my way. I said if you's a pimp made nigga, just like me, you's about your figures. Never see me stressing out over women. Either get up out your clothes or hit the door. I said if you was a pimp made nigga, just like me, you's about your figures. Never see me stressing out over women. Either get up out your clothes or hit the door, bitch. I'm off for the chain, ain't no leash on me. And bitches be like, E, get that ski off me. Y'all boys jealous, y'all wanna put that heat on me. But y'all head get bust off T.O.P. Call the C.O.P.s, the neighborhood OGs. Anybody you please, ain't nobody stopping keys. Stay out for my currency, always out for my chips. And I don't trust shit, you step, you get split. If your girl burping cause she let my skeet digest. Now it's pimp on her mind and pimp on her breath. I got hungry hoes that eat the flesh. Ask your wife and your clique who beat ass best. That's P.O.T. and less. It's Louis Keys coming through in the drop top to bruise your knees, nigga. We put it down now, we put it down now. Get out the way, nigga, get out the way. I said if you's a pimp made nigga, just like me, you's about your figures. Never see me stressing out over women. Either get up out your clothes or hit